O kia ora whānau. For those of you outside New Zealand, that means hello family. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Yeah, this is different for me. I've never done any kind of reaction video before, and I assume that most of you who are seeing this are probably here because you're involved somehow in the Flat Earth Society, either pro or against, so to speak. And there's been a little bit of a hubbub in that very small corner of the world, very small corner of the world. And my name's been dragged into a few things, inaccurately at times, aggressively at times, misrepresented at times. So this is, I think, what the YouTubers call a reaction video. Probably I should explain who I am and what I do. My name is Pat. Hello. I've been a broadcaster in New Zealand since the late 1990s. I've worked in music radio, television. I've worked primarily in news and current affairs radio. So for people who know me in New Zealand, and that's not many people, it's a very small market for me. They'll probably know me best from the #1 talkback show I hosted on News Talk ZB for 7 straight years. News Talk ZB is New Zealand's biggest radio station. And as of today, no, it's not our only news and current events radio station. There's other one as well. But that's who I am, and that's my background, and that's sort of my CV/pedigree, I guess you'd say. And the thing about me is I have always been someone who holds to a really high regard to understand why people believe what they believe. So I'll give you an example. So when I worked as a talkback host on radio, I would talk to people who obviously I disagreed with. That would happen a lot. If someone could go through the logical steps as to why they came to their conclusion, and I could see their logical steps, we'd be happy to end that kind of conversation with, well, I can see how you get there, I just don't agree with you. Unfortunately in talkback, and I think a lot on the internet, people go, I believe this, why? Because I believe this. Or they go, I believe this, why? Well, prove that I'm wrong. Or they go, I believe this, and you go, why? And they go, well, you prove me yours. Those kinds of conversations are immature and pointless and frustrating. For me, I'm really very much about understanding why you believe what you believe. That's a passion of mine, and that can be seen in my broadcasting career for the last 20 years. Even though this YouTube thing is fairly new comparatively, and for me, my latest podcast is only 3 years old, I've been having conversations like this since the 1990s. So I've been doing this a long time. So I will get to some details shortly about what's been going on, what's been happening. But needless to say, if you are someone who knows the name Nathan Oakley or Conspiracy Catz or any of that crew, you know, DIRTH, Fight the Flat Earth, Simon Dan, you know, Mark Sargent, any of those names, you will want to wait till the end of this video to find out what I'm releasing to give you a clear and accurate representation of what happened in this little, I don't even know what you call it, argument, fight, whatever it is. But I think I should give you a pretty accurate representation of what happened first, because it's been misrepresented by some out there. So I run a podcast called The Department of Conversation. It's a long-form conversational podcast. I don't really have a genre per se. I speak to interesting people. I speak to a lot of academics. I speak to, you know, people of profile, actors, musicians, that sort of thing. I speak to politicians. I speak to all sorts of people. So people who follow my podcast are typically people who like broad and general conversations where you go a step deeper. So you'll hear someone on my podcast, and I won't mention any of the names because if you're watching this from the UK or overseas, you won't recognize a lot of the names because a lot of them are New Zealand based, although we do have a lot of international guests, especially in the world of academia. But you might hear a famous New Zealand comedian, for example, talking about their political views or talking about their family or talking about things that you wouldn't normally hear them talk about when they were in a 7-minute conversation on a radio station between 2 sets of ads. So that's sort of what we do. So again, this passion for me to understand why you believe what you believe and to go one step deeper is really, really, I love it. I really do love it. So I've also hosted a series of debates and conversations over the ages. I made a product called Elephant TV in the first part of last decade. And Elephant TV was it wasn't a debate, because I think debate sometimes like blood on the floor doesn't always work. It was more of a conversation. Like at the end of the debate, we didn't have a winner and a loser. We had two sets of information being put out where people could then decide what they wanted. You know, now the thing about that series, Elephant TV, the elephant in the room, that's the idea of Elephant TV. It really was focused and based on a church audience, and the church audience would be, asking questions of themselves at that time. A perfect example is same-sex marriage. We had a conversation around same-sex marriage. Why did we have that conversation? Well, because it was in New Zealand legislation at the time, and the point that I was trying to get people to understand is there are people sitting in a church with you, right, alongside you, that have completely the opposing view to you on this issue. How do you move forward together as one, you might call it body, as one group, understanding that the person sitting next to you might believe completely the opposing thing? So as I've said, this is a decade ago. This idea of understanding why people believe is a deep, deep passion of mine. I basically thought that I'd try and maybe start to relaunch Elephant TV slightly differently, not focus on a church audience, but focus on general audience, because I love conversation, I love debate, I love hearing a broad spectrum of opinion, and I love flat earth conversations. So I thought, well, let's do a debate. Let's start a new series. I started to investigate, better software to be able to host a debate, to do it live, to get enough followers on YouTube, which I didn't have then because I haven't been focusing on YouTube. I typically focus on my audio content for my podcast, and I'm associated with a fairly significant New Zealand platform as well, which I'll talk about shortly. So I thought, let's get someone who is an expert in the area of globe proofs and one who's in the area of flat earth proofs. So I approached Nathan Oakley and Conspiracy Catz. Now, how this went is like this. I approached Nathan Oakley first, and I said, would you like to be in a podcast? This is what we're doing. This is who we are. And he said 7 minutes later, so he responded 7 minutes later, love to be in, great. I'm not giving you the exact quotes because more to come. No conditions, no nothing put on the acceptance. He accepted that he wanted to be on the debate. Awesome. Then I thought, who should we invite to be his opponent? And I watch a little bit of Conspiracy Catz, and I watch a little bit of Simon Dan, and they float around my algorithm. So I contacted Conspiracy Catz, said that Nathan Oakley had said yes. Would he like to come on and debate him? Yes, was the response. Went back to Nathan and said, look, Conspiracy Catz is going to be your opponent. This is what we'd like to get going. Why don't you come on and we'll figure out the moot? Because one of the things I've noticed on the internet is I don't actually think many of the debates are debates. Like, for example, Nathan hosts a quote-unquote debate channel. A debate typically has a moot. A debate typically has space for people to argue their point. A debate then has often the moderator, doesn't have to have though, but I think what I see on a lot of channels, Nathan's is one of them, is arguments. And on some levels, abuse, but not debate.
Well, it's just that, the Earth's negatively charged, and anything that falls to the Earth is electrostatic.
Well, like a balloon?
Yeah, the balloon.
Does that fall to the ground, Whitsit?
No, of course.
Well, then shut up! You dumb fuck!
Doesn't mean there's not a natural bias, though.
A bias? What, for the balloon? How many times do you want to do this? Are you all morons?
Mom. No.
Sorry, are you a moron? Is the balloon going down, Whitsit?
Yes, we are.
Is the balloon
I wouldn't.
biased downwards?
Are you serious, bro? That's how you're gonna
Shut up, Nathan. I'm talking to Whitsit.
Well, what I'm saying is, you see, the bias is so incredibly weak that the...
So it's not a bias down! What bias? The downward one the balloon's not experiencing? Third time, Whitsit.
Debate, there are normally rules. So I actually wanted to run this quite like a proper debate, to have a moot. And I had someone say to me, what's a moot the other day? A question or a statement at the start of a debate to argue to. So something like, the earth is flat and stationary. That was going to be the moot for this debate. Then you'd have Conspiracy Catz arguing against that moot, and you'd have Nathan arguing for that moot. When Nathan found out that Conspiracy Catz was coming on, I got a lot of pushback from Nathan. A lot of complaints about Conspiracy Catz, and a lot of conditions that Nathan wanted to add before he would come on. So Nathan wanted Catz to say that I don't understand the terms. This is not my world, right? But that there is something like a debunked R value. So I'm understanding what that is Nathan thinks you can't prove the radius of the Earth, therefore you're not allowed to use it in the debate. That was one of the ones. And he brought up a series of concerns about conspiracy cats as well. Now, I didn't entertain any of these because, frankly, I don't give a shit about the concerns. I don't give a shit about the conditions because it's my debate and my channel, and I invite you on under my conditions. Now, if you don't want to come on under my conditions, that is absolutely fine. You are entitled to say, I don't want to come on under those conditions. A strangeness came from the conversation where Nathan has basically gone, I do want to come on, but only if you, host of the debate, owner of the platform, will satisfy my conditions. I refuse to satisfy those conditions. So as far as I'm concerned, Nathan has declined my invitation. But in saying this, to be fair, because he didn't want to come under my conditions. So that's fine. That's not him saying, I'm not going to do it for no good reason. He's saying, I'm not going to do it because of these reasons. Fine. No problems. Now, fairness to Nathan, again, he never used the words, I'm not going to do it. But I thought about this the other day, right? I got a phone call the other day from Mike Tyson's fight camp. They said to me, Mike wants to fight you. And I said to him, happy to fight Mike Tyson under certain conditions, that his hands are tied behind his back, that his legs are bound, that he has gaffer tape over his mouth, and that he starts lying down. Under those conditions, I am prepared to accept the invitation to fight Mike Tyson. It's utter nonsense. So what I'm doing there is I'm declining the invitation for Mike Tyson. It's pretty clear. But it seems that there is a very concerning part of this conversation for Nathan that he doesn't want to be seen to be declining. I don't know whether that means he's embarrassed by it or it's he loses face. In New Zealand, we have this thing called mana. It's a Māori term. It means sort of, your mana is your pride, is your standing in a society. Nathan doesn't want to lose his mana. That's what it comes across to me as. I could be wrong, but if I offer you an invitation and you don't accept, then you're declining my invitation. Whatever the reasons are, be they that you think I'm going to be unfair, be they that you think Conspiracy Catz isn't up to your level, whatever it is, it's actually okay to decline. No one is saying you have to come on any debate at any time for any reason. It's okay. On to that point, though, about me being unfair. Something else Nathan has done quite heavily is questioned my professionalism. He's questioned my ability to be a fair host.
He keeps literally, in quotes, putting, this means you've declined. It's just like, what? You interpret it that way? Man, you're really encouraging me to know that you're going to be an unbiased host when you interpret things that say something completely different as words you've decided they mean, because it's easier for you. Yeah, you sound like a really fair host. You know what I mean? This is all an email prior to me ever talking to him. Right, he's ignored half a dozen points I've put to him, some of which 7 times. And yet he's telling me all about how fair his show is. It's like, what? Are you having me on?
I wanted to speak to that a couple of ways. The first is my professionalism. Am I any good at what I do? Well, yeah. Just my London Broadcasting Award. I'll just put that one down there. There's some of my awards from Australia and broadcasting. Oh, look, there's one of my several broadcasting awards from New York. Actually, I might leave the New York one there just to stay in the background. As for the quality of broadcasting, there's no problems with what we do. People know of what I do, or they look at my back catalogue. That's not an issue. But the nature of being biased. So I am not a trained and qualified journalist, but I work as a journalist and I work in the journalistic field. And in this day and age with the internet, many people are able to claim the title of journalist. And I want to be clear that whilst I don't have letters behind my name to be journalism, I work in news and current events a lot. I work with people a lot and speak to people a lot who I don't agree with. The idea of bias to me is a cop-out. And Nathan makes these claims that I am biased and I wouldn't be able to host a fair podcast. How about I offer some examples and some proof otherwise? I've actually had 2 flat earth conversations on my podcast since it's been going, my current podcast, which has been going since 2018. The first one was with a local New Zealand flat earther called Dion Mardier. Let's just have a look and a listen to how that podcast ended and see if you think my guest then thought I was unfair, unreasonable, and biased.
That's not what I went out there. Like I said, I found so much overwhelming evidence that I couldn't deny it.
You know what? You just had the final word. We'll leave it there. Thanks. It's been fun, man. I know this is like the one I've been looking forward to do most of all. And as you say, you didn't come to convince anyone. I didn't come to convince anyone. I just was really interested in believing what you believe. And I get it. And I really am
Not
serious.
believing what I believe, hearing what I believe.
Hearing what you believe, yeah. And I'm serious. We're going to we'll wait till there's a fine night. We'll do a beer on the beach over in Sinclair or something and watch the sun go down together.
Yeah,
or
man.
I'll watch the sun go down and you'll watch the sun go away.
Perspective.
It seems like he had a pretty good time in a pretty fun setting. How about another one? Let's do this. You all know the name Mark Sargent. Mark Sargent came onto my podcast during lockdown about 15 months ago. So first of all, excuse the background. I'm actually in my bedroom doing a podcast with Mark Sargent. That podcast with Mark lasted 2 hours. The one with Dion lasted 1 hour 40. None of them ran away. Neither of them left. They were both happy to stay for the whole thing. Let's see the end of Mark's conversation to see if he appears like he's been treated unfairly and my bias has been an issue. Hey, Mark. Thank you so much. I feel like we could keep going on forever. We've been going for
probably
2 hours.
But I have another podcast in an hour.
Who are you talking to next?
Oh no, it's mine.
Oh, yours.
Yeah.
If you ever want to have like a flat Earth denier on.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, look, genuinely, thank you for your time. It's been lots of fun, and
okay.
I hope if nothing else, people enjoy the conversation. I'm not really interested in the debate per se between, especially the flat Earth community coming at me with vinegar. I don't care, but I'm not going to engage. So
no, don't worry about it. I mean, any flat earthers that are listening, and they will, is like, look.
Thanks, Mark. You're a lovely man.
You.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Now, Nathan offers an opinion on me based on not knowing me, based on concerns he has around a podcast, based on all sorts of unknown quantities. I've just given you 2 pieces of evidence with 2 people from the Flat Earth community who had a good time with me, even though we didn't agree, who thanks me at the end of the conversation, who went away happy, and probably who would be happy to come on again. I will leave that evidence with you and you can decide for yourself. But I also wanted to talk to you about a theory called Occam's razor. Now, I'm sure most of you know what Occam's razor is, right? But for those of you who don't, according to dictionary.com, it's this. When an event occurs, it is natural to wonder how it happened. Occam's razor indicates that the simplest explanation, that is, the solution that requires the fewest assumptions, is preferable. That's important. So some people often say that the most logical conclusion, more often than not, is the accurate one. They talk about using that in murder cases. The most obvious person to commit the crime is normally the person who has done it. So what's the most obvious outcome here? That Pat is a monster who is unfair and unbiased, and that Catz is beneath the standard of debate that Nathan requires. That's actually a really interesting point to think about too. I'm being told over and over and over again, one of the concerns and considerations that Nathan has is he wants an expert. That Catz is not an expert. What that says to me is Catz is a lay-down messiah for Nathan. That Catz is no challenge to Nathan. Nathan wants a challenge. So what he's saying is, I will come on your podcast. I want someone who's more difficult to debate, and I want you to be fair. So that means logic dictates Nathan has an opportunity to annihilate someone with no skill set, to make a case for the flat earth easily and win a debate, and he's choosing not to because he wants someone harder. So, Occam's razor, the most likely solution or outcome. Pat's a monster, Pat's unfair, Pat's unbiased, Pat's unprofessional, Catz is beneath me, or is it something else? Is it that Nathan is looking for an excuse not to do the podcast? He's looking for an excuse not to come up against Catz. That's for you to decide. Now, as I said earlier, this is not my world, right? I'm not an expert in flat earth. I'm not an expert in proving the globe. What I am an expert in, though, is communication. And on some levels, marketing and media as well, which I do with another hat on for lots of companies. And I would say to you that as an expert in that area, and I want to speak to Nathan's fans and fellow flat earthers, the way Nathan carries himself is not helping your cause. As a marketing expert, and I know Nathan loves that term, he is not helping your cause. The way he speaks to people, the reaction he gives to people, does nothing but turn people off what you're trying to sell, right? And when people are turned off by a person, your product becomes toxic. Nathan causes your product to be toxic. And if you are someone of high standing in the flat earth world, maybe you know Nathan personally, and you don't call him out on this, then you are basically saying it's okay for this person to make this product toxic. Okay, so what I'm going to ask is that if you are a fan of Catz or that side of this conversation, that you don't use anything in this response video to attack the other side. I don't care. I don't need your defense. I've had many bigger, scarier, nastier, not just people, but whole organizations come after me because of views and opinions I've shared, especially when working in talkback. Probably the only progressive type host in a conservative talkback realm. I'm not worried in the slightest. I'm not offended by anyone. The language that's been used against me, the accusations that have been made, don't personally offend me. I just feel that there is a need for accuracy. And speaking of that, that's what. Yeah, so don't just leave it alone. Enjoy this. Take from this what you want. Don't use it to point fingers at other people. Don't worry about them. Worry about your own shit and let them worry about their shit. But what I want to do, and I played a bit of audio from Nathan earlier, and you can go back and listen to it. He says this. He says that I said, quote, "This means you have declined." Those are words Nathan used on his radio. He's saying that I said in quote messages in an email chain, "This means you have declined." I've never said that to Nathan. Those words, quote, "This means you have declined," I have never said. Now, Nathan's quoting me as saying that. He's saying that I'm saying it in quote marks in an email. Now, there have been conversations where I've said, "I'll take this as you declining," or if I'm inviting you, if you're not standing up to my conditions, that appears to be a decline. But I never actually said, "This means you have declined." Nathan said that I did. Now, that might not sound like very much to you, but 5% spin on this conversation can make a big difference. There's been misrepresentations and there's been inaccuracies about the communication between Nathan and myself, so I'm releasing the email chain. The full email chain from my very first email to the last email I got back from that. I actually noticed the other day someone sent me a clip where he went on air, "Oh, we can be men and talk to each other." That was actually an offer from me. I said to Nathan, "We can talk to each other like men," and now he's selling it like he's saying, "Well, we could be men," and that was actually my offer to him. You'll see it in the email chain. The email chain, when I put it up last night, I haven't made it public at the time of recording this, but I will once I post this. I'm embarrassed as to how long it is. And I notice as you go through the email chain, my answers get shorter and shorter and shorter, and Nathan's answers get longer and longer and longer. I'll leave that to be as it may with you. But the reason I'm releasing the full email chain, every single word as it was spoken, haven't taken out grammatical errors. The only thing that I have deleted is a few emojis because they screwed up my formatting. But other than that, every word is in there in the order it came in. Taking out obviously all the personal details. There's no email addresses. There's no nothing like that. But I want you to read it. Now, if you are a fan of Nathan Oakley, I challenge you to go and read that email chain. And at the end of it, if you still think it's me being unreasonable and Nathan being righteous, honestly, more power to you. More power to you. If at the end of it you say, Pat has offered Nathan an opportunity to come on a platform and debate. Pat said, "This is my platform, my conditions. I'm not going to be concerned about your conditions. You're welcome to come." And Nathan has still put up protests. And you come to the conclusion yourself that means, in essence, Nathan is declining that invitation, then I would challenge you to take that to him. I don't need to hear from you, and I don't need people who are globe people to throw that at Nathan. But I really am quite interested to see what the flat earth world thinks of this, especially when it comes to the way that Nathan carries himself, making your product toxic, making your product less attractive to people. And anyone who wants to make their product less attractive, look, it's just nonsense. Hey, look, I've never done this before. I do long-form conversations. This is far too long, this video. I get it. If you've made it this far through, congratulations and thanks for watching. I am going to do a couple more flat earth things. I'm not ever going to get involved in it in a heavy way. I'm not the person who's going to delve into the science. I am the person who's going to find other interesting people to talk about it. That's my skill set. I open the door for communication. I say, come into my studio via Zoom or via whatever. I'll open the door and you can tell your story. So if you have seen this and you've liked or subscribed to my YouTube channel, I appreciate it. Why don't you go and have a look at some of the other content that's there? I speak to all sorts of interesting people. Just in this last week with the Olympics going on, I spoke to a double gold medalist a week ago. I spoke to the captain of New Zealand rugby sevens. They're gold medalist winners. On Tuesday this week, I'm not sure when this is going to be uploaded, I'm going to be speaking to a rower, Emma Twigg. She won a gold medal as well. And all sorts of other interesting people are up and on there. Go and have a look. And look, you know what? Shameless plug. Share me around. Not got nothing to do with flat earth stuff. Share me around. The content's good. I enjoy it. Most people who see it enjoy it, and we're trying to grow. I'd really appreciate that, actually. If nothing else, share us around and fucking, grow another 10%. That would be flipping amazing. This is what I'm going to leave you with. A lot of people watching this will be based in the UK. It seems to be a bit of a heavy, populated area for the flat earth. Old Billy Boy Shakespeare. I'm a bit of a fan of Billy Boy Shakespeare. Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 2. You probably know it well. All you English people, I'm sure that part of being able to call yourself English or British is you must know Shakespeare by heart. Act 3, Scene 2. Sorry, my dyslexia jumped in there for a sec. In Hamlet, where Hamlet thinks that his uncle has murdered his dad, he puts on a play that echoes his beliefs. And they're sitting there watching the play. Him and his mum. What's her name? Gertrude? I think it's Gertrude, isn't it? And they're sitting there watching the play. And Hamlet looks at his mum and he goes, hey mum, what do you think of the play? And you'll know the saying. What does his mum say back to him? Queen Gertrude says, "The lady doth protest too much, methinks." They're watching a play. The actress on the play, on the stage, is making protests and noise and, accusations and whatever other things she's doing on stage. And the Queen looks at it and goes, all that fuss she's making, she's protesting too much. It's over the top. It's unbelievable. After experiencing what I've experienced with Nathan, after if this is the first time for you, seeing and hearing, go to my my blog and you'll see the email chain, link in the description. Is that what you say? I'll leave you with this one thought before we head off. All right, team, like, subscribe, watch some of the content, share us around. I don't know what you're supposed to do. Like I said, this is the first time for me. And, we're still going to host. Catz has still said we're going to host this Flat Earth debate. It'll be up at some stage. I am talking to some other Flat Earthers at the moment. And, if you like and subscribe, then you'll know when it's coming up. What do? You ring that bell? Honestly, I have no idea what I'm doing. All right, team. Catch you later.